Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Power of Knowing Forums, the LinkedIn live session 116 today. Today, we are talking on a topic of five bad things destroy authority as a manager, executive, and director. Without further ado, we have Thomas and Rajiv joining us to have this discussion taken forward. Without further ado, let's bring them onto the desk. Hi, Rajiv. Hi, Thomas.
Thank you.
Welcome to our
Thank you, Prem.
podcast. What are you, Thomas?
Okay, thank you very much, Prem, for your introduction as always and your hosting here. It's a great platform to talk about really important things for managers, executive directors, and other leaders in organizations. As you say, our LinkedIn Live today is five bad things that destroy your authority as a manager, executive, and director. And we're going to actually do them in reverse order today. And in fact, the number one, which we'll deal with last, which I think is the worst thing an organization can do, not only really harms the reputation of a manager, executive, or director, but actually can destroy or ruin whole organizations. So we'll get to that one in a little while. And these are major pitfalls, I guess. These are major mistakes that organizations and managers can make that have extreme negative consequences from these behaviors. And we want to explore the best antidotes to each of them to foster healthier, more productive, and more contributory workplaces, not only contributory to the organization, but contributory to all the individuals who work in the organization and all the customers and all the suppliers who rely on the organization for various aspects of their lives and businesses. So, as usual, Rajiv is joining us today. Sunil is traveling. It's his turn to travel today. It was my turn a couple of weeks ago. And so Prem is going to join us in today's discussion. So here goes. So what are the five worst things managers, executives, and directors can do to destroy their reputation? Well, as I say, in reverse order, here we go. So saving the worst till last, but starting with the least. So number one, or number five, is lack of deep values to ensure integrity. Obviously, integrity is the foundation of any strong leadership. When managers and executives lack deep values, their integrity is compromised. And this can manifest through broken promises, dishonesty, unethical behavior, unequal treatment of individuals, all of which erode trust and respect. So, yeah, those are the big headlines, I guess. Negative consequences, probably eroded trust, certainly ultimately decreased productivity because employees are less likely to go the extra mile if they cannot rely and feel respected by their leaders. And ultimately, people leave, they walk, they go for other jobs. So talented employees, experienced employees will leave for other organizations where integrity and trust and appreciation is not upheld. So, Prem, as you start us off, how can leaders consistently demonstrate integrity in their daily actions?
Yeah, very good point, Thomas. Leaders have to look at what looks good for the business and how it has to be taken in front of the organization and the team that is there. So which helps them to look at pointers where we see that we don't miss out points that have organizations to develop these talent in our organizations, and that always has a commitment for, and be transparent for them to have an integrated integrity on a daily basis. Thomas, it's winning trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Rajiv, can you build on this for us? What are some of the ways to rebuild trust once it has been broken?
Yeah, I think thank you, Thomas, for this very interesting topic. I think the most important thing is, when to achieve trust, you have to be ethical. So when you are doing ethical decision making and make decision based on ethical principles and you know, although there may be a challenging environment, but you don't compromise on ethics. So that itself brings a lot of trust in the people who are dealing with you, and they will understand that you are actually following the rule book, or you are following the consistency in your ethical policies, and you are not compromising anywhere. So even if you are rubbing few people on the wrong side, but still, if you are maintaining the ethics, you will be able to, build or rebuild the trust, which is very, very important. And second important point is the open communication. So you must foster an environment where honesty is valued and rewarded. I have seen in certain organizations, dishonest people thrive, and honest people are always on the defensive. So if you are making that kind of environment in your organization, you are bound to fail. So you need to make sure that the honest people are recognized and rewarded also, and the honesty is valued all across the organization. And you need to actually bring that basic principle of honesty as a culture in your organization, and that actually can play a very big role in making sure that there is a positive environment all around.
Sure, absolutely. I agree with every single bit of what you both said. And I think for me, it takes me back to something we mentioned last week, which is these deep values around an integrity orientation, and the openness that you've just talked about is about being candid about one's own experience. It's also about interpersonal relationships. These deep values where there's a recognition that most members of the organization are committed to the organization's welfare. And what this does is breed a collaborative organization. And when people can relate as equal human beings, they relate holistically as human beings, you get a much more collegiate relationship. And I believe those three values are something that an organization can decide at its beginning, or really at any point in its life. But they're three kind of major chunks of values that need to be underneath. That's why we call them deep values, underneath all other values, and they need to guide how people behave. So, having said all of that, I think what we're beginning to talk about is without these roots, we end up with unskillful and unethical communication. And it's not that people always mean to be unhelpful or destructive, but if they are unskillful, and that can lead in itself to being unethical, then it leads to confusion, mistrust, and more lack of cohesion within the team. So if we have problems like inconsistent messaging that we've just been talking about, lack of transparency, and ineffective listening in particular, because that is definitely a skill, then that can be a real problem when mixed signals are given, because this creates uncertainty and hinders alignment with company goals. Sometimes when lack of openness, critical information is withheld, and employees feel undervalued and out of the loop. They feel they're somehow excluded from the truth. And ineffective listening, well, that makes people feel plain ignored. And that's really bad when they're trying to tell the organization what it needs to heal itself. And that ultimately leads to disengagement. So I guess what we're looking for again now is some antidotes. So Rajiv, can you start it off with perhaps some of the best practices for maintaining consistent messaging within an organization?
Yeah. So every organization has a different way of handling this particular issue of very clear and consistent messaging. You can have various tools which are there, like Microsoft has a Microsoft Teams, where you can actually uh, chat between the people who are part of the organization, and the overall bulletin boards can be there. There is a integrated email system where all messages can go in one shot, uh, whether it is from the desk of a CEO or desk of a HR head or anyone in the organization. And it should be you have to align those messages in line with the vision and mission of the company, because it should not be that you are saying something and doing something else. Then people will get confused as to what is your policy on any particular subject. So you have to make sure that your messaging has to be consistent, and it has to be a very positive message all across the organization. And for example, when I was heading a HR in a company, I started thought of the day. So when I started, people were zapped that what is it you are trying to do. So I would simply say something which is very positive and will motivate them, and give them something new or a new idea. And so when I was having initial inertia as a change management practice, I implemented it. And later on, I found that people, if I miss out on any day, people will ask, where is that message? They were looking forward to it. So you have to make sure that you always have very clear and consistent communication with your people, and keep them engaged is something which we all need to focus on.
Sure, sure. So, Prem, building on this, how can leaders improve transparency without doing the other extreme, which is another unskillful behavior, which is giving too much information and overwhelming their team with too much information? So what are your suggestions here?
You are on mute, Prem.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Thank you for that, Rajiv. What I feel most of the time leaders tend to give is they don't have a right information moving there, and that way it stops transparency, right? So there is piece by piece information that gets given to the team. So if the leader improves transparency without overwhelming the team with information, that makes it very simpler for them to understand, and it opens up for a discussion that can be taken with an important point to drive for a conclusion, right? That is one thing. And people or the leaders should start uh, looking at hearing most of the pointers rather than uh, talking. We need more feedback to come out. What are the pitfalls that we are having? How we can take appropriate action for certain pointers that the feedback is coming through. That involves a lot of active listening. That active listening gives us a lot of insights, which I think most of the time we miss to get as leaders. We speak out and voice out most of the pointers, but when we look at actively listening, we hear people talking about it, and we get a lot of insights which we can act upon. That's what I take from this pointer, Thomas.
Okay, thank you, Prem and Rajiv. I think we're beginning to dig right into the heart of this issue now as we go down the layers of things, the bad things that people do. And for sure, lack of listening is one of the big ones that can really hinder the development of good culture and good reputation. And one of the favorite quotes I have is from Jay Abraham, who's one of the world's top marketers. And he says, to be interesting, be interested. And the big behavior there is to ask good quality questions so that people can then respond And all you then have to do once you've asked a good quality question or started a good conversation with a question is sit down and listen and demonstrate that you're listening by doing something with the information or commenting on the information that you've been given in a constructive and useful way. So there's quite a lot going on for communication. And I think the other part of unskillful to mention is, as well as the kind of communicating all the information that's needed to do the job, a skillful manager and a skillful leader, executive, director will also spend a little bit of time for friendship and kind of collegiate chat, because that also helps build rapport. So we're beginning to get now to some of the key areas. And I think where this is leading, as we drill down, is to number 3, which is a failure to acknowledge people's value in one way or another. And in fact, one of the worst ways to turn people off is micromanagement. Employees thrive when they feel valued and trusted. Micromanagement stifles innovation and undermines trust, leading to a disengaged and demotivated workforce if they have to turn to their boss to ask permission for every little thing they might need to or want to do. And it just makes them feel so worthless and disempowered. So I guess the symptoms are over-controlling, not allowing employees to make decisions or work independently, lack of trust, demonstrating a kind of lack of faith in employees' abilities, and ultimately stifling innovation, preventing creative problem solving by being overly prescriptive. So they're the 3 big things that I think people do. And this also has its negative consequences. So over-controlling prevents employees from developing their own skills and taking ownership of their work. Lack of trust demonstrates a lack of confidence in the team's abilities. And nobody likes that. And stifling innovation discourages creative problem solving and independent thinking. And that means old problems just sit there for year after year after year, never getting solved, even though members of your team have the answers. So horrific. So what about the antidotes? So Prem, what strategies can leaders use to empower their employees?
So first point, what we discussed earlier was more of active listening, Thomas, and empowering people to make the right decisions. And the bigger problem what we see or bigger concern that teams have is they don't have a person who takes ownership. If ownership and allow people to make their decision to do certain tasks or certain projects in their style, it gives a lot of confidence for them to take the right approach for any pointers that they want to look at, Thomas. You made an important point where people talk about saying that if I have a good person who's doing good always, he will make mistakes at times, right? But mistakes cannot be treated as failures. It is the point that they want to grow on and they learn by doing mistakes. We should understand failure is the stepping success is the stepping stone for success. So a failure is okay. You should acknowledge what people are doing, how things are there, stand by them and support them and trust them that they can do better, is what I think is one thing that we should look at as leaders to bring uh, teams to make decisions, take right calls, give them ownership to take work on themselves, give them to elevate. Overall, to say is that we empower them in as much as ways possible for them to be empowered to do decisions in a right way, is what I think, Thomas.
Sure, absolutely. And that reminds me of the invention of the light bulb. And it took more than 10,000 tries, supposed failures, before the light bulb was made. So that's an astonishing amount of times to do what we call failure. But is it really a failure, or is it just the next step in the process to success? So there are many ways of thinking about failure. So Rajiv, how can managers kind of balance oversight? So I wonder if anybody was managing the development of the light bulb. I think there was a person who said, nope, we'll try one more time. or another 1,000 times, or whatever it takes, because a light bulb is so important to humanity. We've got to have one. So we just keep going, and they kept on going for all those tries. So Edison was obviously quite some leader there. So we just keep going all that time. So Rajiv, how can managers balance oversight with giving employees the freedom to innovate? Because Edison's team must have innovated so much to get to the answer.
Yeah, I think it is a very tough thing for a manager to actually balance this, risk between oversight and, continue with the innovation or innovative mind. Because when there is a innovation, I actually deal with a lot of startups, and I see this in day out, that the innovation and the research and development team is always trying to do something new. But the problem is that they keep on shifting their deadlines, because they try it once, it's not complete, some problem has happened. So these guys will come back and say, oh, sorry, uh, I couldn't do this or something. So the people on the other side may think, oh, they are asking for, there's excuse behind this whole thing. So you need to have that kind of trust in your team. So you need to build that trust and show confidence in team's abilities, and provide them support rather than control them. Because if you are simply controlling, they may have, they may lose focus on their activity. And the second point is that we must always encourage innovation. If you are having an environment which is not conducive to innovation, or you are not fostering that culture within the organization where creative solutions are welcomed and rewarded, people will not innovate. My boss, Japanese boss, once uh, taught me a lesson that if you do a same mistake, uh, second time, only then I'll question you. If you are in your regular job committing any mistake, I will not. I will just tell you that this is a mistake. Please correct it, but will not say anything to you. So, but if you are committing the same mistake second time, that means you are casual about it. You are not bothered about it. So that's what I think you need to foster, a culture of confidence in your team. You need to encourage them to innovate, because if they are not taking risks, they will not be able to, uh, you know, mm, go further in the whatever business they are doing. But if they are always overly cautious, they are shying away from innovation, you will not get the results. So that is where I think the team leaders, managers, they have to see that they put that confidence and put their weight behind the team, that okay, go ahead, take that risk, I'm there with you. And the team should have that confidence to, as you gave the example, that they tried 100 times, so or 1,000 times also people try, and they achieve the results. So that is what this whole culture of innovation is all about.
Absolutely. And there are times when that kind of persistence for the right answer, I guess there's a couple of things stacked up here now beginning to make sense in terms of the way we're working with Genesis. First of all, know your outcome. If it is vital you find an answer to a complex problem, well, maybe that's a sign that you ask your team to keep on going, to keep on thinking of other ways, to keep on solving the problems. But there's two other bits here. Something that Tony Buzan said. He was the kind of founder of the whole movement around mind mapping, creative diagramming, and non-linear note-taking, which is a very creative act in itself. And he used to say, every human being is capable of virtually unlimited development. So if you micromanage, then you've only got one brain, one person's quantity of ideas in the room. If you let other people innovate, as you've just suggested, then you've got all their brains in the room. So it'll be times 10 or times 20 the amount of mental and creative power in the room. So it makes an enormous difference. And to suppress that is an enormous harm in my book. It's a harm for the world, and it's awful for the individuals who are micromanaged. So I guess the big lesson here is don't do that either. So that takes us on to another area that I think gets deeper into this problem. And this is where words are not backed up by actions. And I remember my boss years ago once said to me, if there is a difference between what you say and what you do, which will people believe is the real you? And of course, it's your actions that really matter. So unless they're lined up with your words, how can people trust you? So leaders must practice what they preach. When words are not backed up by actions, it leads to a loss of credibility and respect and trust. So inconsistent behavior is not practicing what you preach, maybe. Lack of accountability, not taking responsibility for your own, or if you're the manager, your team's mistakes, because you're the boss who has responsibility for your team. It's no good blaming them. It's you that is the manager. It's up to you to take responsibility. So praise them and give them credit when they do something great. But when they make a mistake, it's down to you to take responsibility, not push it onto them. And the last one is a poor work ethic. If not demonstrating commitment to what you say or dedication to the job is evident, then people are not going to respect that. They're not going to respect that. So all of this creates confusion, mistrust among employees. Leaders who don't take responsibility for actions undermine their own authority because nobody trusts them. And a poor work ethic, of course, commands no respect whatever, no matter how grand the words are. And we've seen a lot of this, particularly in the political arenas in the last few years, where words have not matched the actions. And ultimately, those leaders have paid the consequence. So, Rajiv, take us in here. How can leaders ensure their actions align with their words?
Yeah, this is a very, very important personality trait for a leader. And we all have heard it so many times that a leader must lead by example. So the leader has to always, be working in a way that they demonstrate the behavior and the work ethics they expect from their team members. So, if you are saying that, oh, you guys have to follow the code of conduct of the company, and you are yourself not following the code of conduct, then there's something wrong. People will not follow. Some companies I have seen they have written on their gates, "We don't accept gifts." But the leader himself is okay shaking hand and accepting gifts from vendors or something. So definitely this is going to be questioned. So that rule will not be followed by others as well, because they will say, oh, this is just a rule. There's no one who bothers about it. So we all need to do self reflection. We all must understand that whatever we are expecting from our subordinates or the people who are following us, we must do that ourselves. We must be very clear in our communication that these are the rules, this is what I'm doing, and we must always be very transparent about it. We should not try to do things behind the closed doors and show a policy which is inconsistent with our overall company vision and mission. And also, you should always play a very positive role in showing to your team members that this is what we need to. And sometimes people have a habit of uh, you know uh, mm, raising false alarms just to make sure that the policy is followed or something. That doesn't work, because people come to know that you are doing that. And in my childhood, I used to hear a story that there was a guy who used to go to a jungle area, and will shout, "Oh, lion has come, lion has come." So, but later on, he used to say, "Oh, it was a joke." Um, Another day, he went again, and he did the same thing. Actually, lion came, and nobody came to save him because they thought that this guy is foolish. So this is where I think we need to always be clear that whatever you are saying, your words should not you should be backed by your actions. You should not say anything which is very loose, or you should not do things which are not consistent with what you are trying to convey to others and what you want others to follow.
Okay, very good story, Rajiv. I enjoyed that. The surprise in that one. Prem, what steps can leaders take to improve accountability within their teams?
I think Rajiv has covered in depth most of the points but I would like to add is the point that we are discussing is about how words are backed by actions is what we are talking about. I think when you say something, you should strongly support teams in getting those things done, and also look at how we can align them, and those mistakes that they do or the pitfalls that they have are getting addressed in such a way that they can improve their accountability with teams. First thing is that. The second point that we should look at is how consistently align their actions to their words. We should look at if they are talking about things, if they are clear on these things, and we should encourage them that if you take what you are giving as a commitment. Just to give an example, is a deadline for a project can be given with this percentage of work that will be done by this week is an example, right? If you follow that and you commit, the customer will always look at you to see this is getting delivered on time. That is one pointer that I wanted to make. The other pointer that we should look at also is, I've seen many of the people, as what Rajiv said, taking gifts and stuff like that. Gifts is little bigger in terms of what I would think, Rajiv. What I think is, if you are committing a time for a meeting, people don't turn up at those meetings. That is the first way that you show action to your team member, saying that if we are coming at this time, this is the time we start the meeting, this is the time we end the meeting. So that is a commitment which starts with the basic thing. Then coming to office at a time, informing people what time they are coming, keeping the transparency. What we've been discussing over the period of time now is that how do we take accountability? How do we look at what is to be? When you do something consistently, the team will follow what you are doing. So that's where you bring in that leadership that is required for the team to follow. You keep up your commitments, the team will follow you. That's what I feel is what I think makes a lot of difference. When you say something and you do it by yourself, the team will obviously follow you, Thomas. That's what is
Absolutely.
my take on it.
Yes, thank you. I think all of that's added a lot of detail to this rather an intangible subject. Now,
Mm.
we're about to get into the worst thing that managers can do. But before that, I thought it'd be good to just go back over the journey we've come through. Now, if all these beginning things, we started with number 5, a lack of deep values to ensure integrity. So values to guide how people treat one another and how the organization works with one another. All those are really important. And then we came down to number 4, unskillful and unethical communication. And in particular, we drew attention to listening and transparency and consistency. And that's a theme that's repeated all the way through. So unskillfulness is lack of these things. And if you do even those two things, you will undermine your authority and your reputation. So then we came down to number 3, a failure to acknowledge people's value, this kind of micromanagement. And what's beginning to be clear is that these, to some extent, are attitudes to other people. So if you do any of these things, you're going to be not helping yourself, and you're going to be really not helping them, which is why you're losing the reputation if you're doing these things. And then finally, what really we're saying is if companies got really fine policy and says something like our people are our most important assets, and then disregard them and treat them poorly, well, clearly the consistency which Prem has been talking about now is absent. And the stuff that Rajiv was talking about earlier about making sure that behaviors and work ethic are role modeled by you. You're their leader, you're their manager. So they're going to attempt to follow after you. If you give them a bad example, well, not surprisingly, they're probably going to either not respect you because you force them to do things right whilst they continuously do things wrong, or they're going to start to copy you and ultimately kind of start to misbehave in the same way that you are, none of which is good. But there's one thing this all leads to, this kind of these attitudes of lack of respect and lack of importance for you to be skillful all lead to one thing, and it ultimately leads to number one. And this is number one: being unkind, uncaring, and cruel to employees. Now, there's one version of this that is absolutely crucial. I'll come to that in a moment. So, kindness and compassion are crucial in great management and great directors and great executives and great leaders in general. Being unkind or cruel to employees not only harms individuals, but damages the whole organization much, much more than you know. It's not that people don't see what you're doing. The problem for you as a manager is they see everything that you're doing. So here's some of the things that can go on. Neglecting work-life balance. If you try and force people to do much more than is good for them, or at times when they're unable to deliver perhaps as fully as they might do the rest of the time, so that exceeds the expecting employees to work excessive hours and things like that. Disregarding mental health, seeing that somebody has a problem and then failing to provide support to them, emotional and psychological support, allowing maybe workplace conflicts to escalate without intervention from you. All these things harm the environment. But there's one area where we think we can be immune, and this is poor exit management. If you send somebody away from your organization, whether it's a dismissal or whether they're in the wrong job or whether it's a time, you do it in an uncaring way and an unkind way, the whole organization will see what happens and they will think, when are they going to do that to me? Now, there's real damage happening to an organization. So, neglecting work-life balance leads to burnout and high turnover. Disregarding mental health creates a toxic work environment and increases absenteeism. But poor exit management can fatally damage the entire organization's reputation and lead to either long-term negative consequences or even the entire failure of the organization. So let's talk about some of the antidotes. What are some effective ways to promote work-life balance in the workplace? Prem.
Thomas, the first point that I would like to add here is where you made a very important point, being kind to people, right? Major of the problems that come up in an organization is the way people talk to their subordinates or the managers that they work with. The tone makes a lot of difference, and when you hear somebody, you can easily make out that they are being good or they are not good to you, right? That tone clearly says everything. Now, leading to this is people want to work, but they would try to see how much I can see I don't face him again. That kind of a pointer happens to employees, right? These employees always say that if we are supposed to look at what is that the encouragement that I will be getting from this person, that is one thing. When you treat people kindly and give them respect and understand what exactly they are doing, there is a lot of scope for people to perform much, much better than what we expect itself. And that kind of a support that has a backing or a assurance that people feel that he is available when something is going wrong, that's the kind of way you can look at bringing people more to do their this one. Most of the people also look at the work life balance, what you look at when they assign work. That is another key point that we should look at and promote based on what the person is looking at. Everybody has to manage their time when it is personal and official time. So respect their boundaries in terms of what is work and what is this one. If they are on a vacation, respect that they are on vacation and don't have that kind of a commitment that is to be looked at. See, even when we do projects, we always look at pointers where we see people will take leaves and that has to be respected. So putting an effective work-life balance will help a lot of things for the managers to understand their team, and that can help them improve and do more work than expected. That's my take on your point, Thomas.
Okay, thank you, Prem. And I think we're getting into some really important kind of summary points here. Rajiv, how can leaders support the mental health of their employees? What are the big lessons there?
Yeah, so I think this is one area which is now much talked about, and more attention is being given to this particular aspect of mental health. Because if your employees are not supported with a lot of emotional and psychological well-being, which is required by them, uh, they will not be able to perform at the level which you are expecting them to. So a lot of HR managers are now resorting to lots of innovative ideas, where a lot of team building exercises, a lot of excursion tours, or a lot of opportunities where employees can talk out their uh, you know problems they are facing. Even not only in their official life, people are going to the extent of looking at their personal issues and personal problems, so that if they have a personal problem in life, they will not be able to focus on their professional goals also. So that is one area where the organization should have a culture of supporting employees on mental health issues, and make sure that their well-being is taken care. And there should be lots of companies are having one-to-one sessions with the employees. If they are not able to spend time, they can come to us with to Regenesis. We have expertise in making sure that we do these kind of sessions with employees, and make sure that uh, their issues are resolved, and they feel mentally, psychologically, and emotionally positive in their approach. And the second most important thing is how you are making sure the exit management is being done. So people, they value their employees, they always clap for them, they always encourage them. uh, but when it is the time for them to leave, or they want to uh, depart from the company, sometimes they forget even to treat them with respect. So if you are treating your departing employees with respect and support, the others, that is what Thomas, you just mentioned, they are looking at it. So if you are mistreating them, if you are doing certain things which are not good as per the industry standards, so definitely the other employees may think that, okay, when I'm going to leave, they are going to do the same thing with me also. So you are not doing only for that particular employee, you are actually giving a message to the entire organization that how we are treating our employees. And also, it is very important to do a proper exit interview talk to that person who's leaving the organization, because sometimes I have been doing it myself. Sometimes you get $1 million advice and suggestion, which your working employee may not dare to talk to you. So the exiting employee has nothing to lose, so he is in any way going, he or she. So they actually sometimes give you a very honest and candid feedback, which can be actually utilized in improving your internal systems and processes. So I think these are the two areas where we need to really focus on the mental health issue and the positive exit management. Rest, of course, there are many things which can be done, but these are the 2 points I thought I'll share with you.
Thank you, Rajiv. That's a really good kind of place to kind of bring us to the end of the main areas. But I think it's also worth going that little step further, as we usually do in our sessions. Regenesis is all about doing things in a very different way. And I think the issue this brings up here is, what's the overlap and what's the difference between friendship and colleagueship? And although they overlap, for sure, there are things about kindness and respect and compassion that overlap between the two, particularly when you're the manager. There is a difference. And maybe it's doing the right thing in the best way you've got available and seeing everybody else through kind eyes would be a reasonable place, a reasonable summary to do this. And in the midst of all that, to work hard at your own skillfulness. Now, this is what we do in the Regenesis program. This is what we do in the Regenesis network. We try and help managers move into what we call the Regenesis mode of working. It's much more enjoyable, it frees up much more of your time, and ultimately will lead you to a much bigger salary. But importantly, it will also affect the human values you use to manage and direct and lead other people. So these are really important things. These 5 areas, for sure. They're actions, the 5 of them are actions that erode trust, and once trust is broken, it's hard to rebuild. Employees become disengaged and morale drops. If that happens, then of course productivity is decreased. Poor leadership leads to confusion, inefficiency, and lack of motivation. And if that happens, well, the most able people to leave will start to leave. Talented employees are like to leave for better managed companies. And if that happens, of course, reputation, the damage to reputation of you and your organization, word spreads quickly about poor leadership and poor organizations, affecting the ability to attract then the top talent which you need, and potentially harming the company's public image. But ultimately, if you do the worst of these bad things, which is number 1, which is poor exit management, you can ultimately, just by doing something rational. I recently heard of a large organization that let go a whole layer of managers all over the company, and there was about 100 managers were let go, and they were let go at just about 10 days' notice. They weren't allowed to talk about what was happening to them or let anybody else know until the last day. You can imagine how stressed those individuals were and how shocked the whole employee body was when they heard on the last day that they were going that day, all of them. And the damage was profound. So when an organization does something like that, it can actually trigger the failure of the entire organization, or do so much damage that the organization and its senior managers really are trapped then in a forever economic and moral purgatory. The organization will never grow, it will never thrive. As respect diminishes, so does the organization's ability to deliver decently and lead other people and keep the respect of customers, because ultimately all of this really matters. So hopefully you've gained a lot from our session today, and you can see how these crucial behaviors are definitely to be guarded against. And we need to think about how we avoid, as far as possible, all of these things. So, thank you for joining us in what we believe is a crucial discussion. And maybe before we close, to encourage anybody who'd like to comment or ask questions with the team here, to do that now, and so we can tackle that. Uh, we believe that by understanding these pitfalls and implementing the antidotes, all of us, all of you and all of us can create healthier, more productive and contributory organizations that contribute to themselves, that contribute to their employees and contribute to the world. And remember, great leadership is always about integrity, effective communication, valuing your team, aligning words and action, and showing kindness. So, our parting message today is let's strive to embody these qualities in our leadership roles. Prem, over to you, maybe to take us to the end of the day.
Yeah, Thomas, thank you for that. Thank you for it was a great session that we were talking, and there is an important topic that we are discussing, which is about five bad things that can destroy things, right, for you, your authority as a manager, executive, and a director. So, this is a very important, crucial point that leaders should understand, and the team also should understand. And we've dealt with pointers that may help the audience. And with this, we would like to conclude the show. Thank you for joining us today on LinkedIn Live. Please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and we have hope we have this session helping you and you found valuable insights on this. Our next podcast is tomorrow, that is 11th, where we are talking about AI in action, creating AI-driven market campaign at 6:30 p.m. Again on IST. We are streaming live on all the other platforms. With this, we would like to conclude the session and bye for now. Meet you soon. Thank you,
Thank you.
Thomas. Thank you,
Thank you.
Rajiv.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prem.
Prem. Thank you,
Thank you,
Thomas.
Rajiv.